I'm Jeffrey Siegel, the host of the Mystic Journey podcast. I would like to welcome you and thank you for joining us. Today, we look to enlighten and enliven you with a thought-provoking discussion with one of the community's most successful and inspiring individuals. Everyone has a story, a life journey, a mystic journey. Today, our guests will share with you their personal journey, along with some of their secrets and some of the tools they utilize to get where they are today. Sit back and enjoy our conversation and look forward to being uplifted and emboldened with a positive discussion that may just propel you onto a new path or the next step in your own mystic journey. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Mystic Journey podcast. This is Jeffrey Siegel, your host, and this is where we explore the mystic journey of an amazing individual who I think will uplift you and maybe really, hopefully, inspire you to take the next step on your own mystic journey. Today, I am honored and thrilled to have as my guest a wonderful, amazing woman, Taylor Carr. Taylor is a femininity coach and a clinical hypnotherapist specializing in masculine feminine dynamics, confidence, and relationships. After healing herself from an incurable disease in her early 20s, which she's going to talk about, she dove into the world of natural healing and discovered the power of the feminine, attraction, and the subconscious mind. She mixes classic and modern wisdom to now help women create more success in their own lives in a way that truly works for them. And so with that, let me say, hi, Taylor. How you doing?
Hi, Jeff. I'm doing great. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm doing great too, and really thank you so much for being on my podcast. We've known each other for a number of years, and we've both really gone through through evolutions and had so many things cross our paths and impact our lives, and to find ourselves together, doing this podcast is very special to me.
It's special to me too. Yeah, I can't thank you enough for having me. And so much of this journey of mine, you have been a part of, and I became the woman I am while working for you, with you in your store. So it's just really cool to be here.
Well, thank you. That's super sweet. So I'd like to start like I usually do, with just a little bit of background of about where you grew up and a little bit about your childhood and where you went to school before we get to your early 20s and the health issue that you confronted.
Oh, yes. I grew up in the beautiful city called San Diego, California. And I had quite a tumultuous childhood, as I think many people do when they come into personal development world. We all have these experiences. I had an addict as a father who was just, I loved him so much. He was totally my hero, but was also very sick with drug addiction and alcohol addiction. And I had to be an adult very, very young. And just watching my father go through these different things, I'm going to sidebar and tell everyone I'm fostering a baby wolf. So there's a lot of sounds in the background because they cannot be controlled. But so you'll hear her sounds in the background. So watching my father go through all of this journey was a very painful experience for me, for the women in his life, for my mother. There was a lot of abuse, and even to the point of me being kidnapped at one point by my own father. And it was just very tumultuous. And by the time that he died when I was 15, I had to grow up even harder. And, we ended up moving from San Diego and moved into a cabin with no hot water and no heater up in Sedona, Arizona. And from there, my family kind of became conspiracy theorists, and it was just crazy town from the time that I was a little girl. So, of course, coming into my adult life, I had manifested an illness that was a reflection of everything that I'd been through.
Wow, that's quite a lot in about 63 seconds or something.
I know, it was really quick, but I wanted to get to it quickly because I don't really resonate with the story so much anymore. So I can kind of just, here's where it is. This is where I came from. And this is why we get to have juicy conversations now, is because of this.
Well, and I think that something you just said is so important, that you don't, it's not your story anymore. I think that a lot of people have events in their life that are, to put it mildly, that are challenging, and they do pass through them. They face the challenges, but when they come out the other end, it's very difficult for them to let go or move on from the challenges, and those, the events that occurred begin to be a little bit, or a lot of it, like an albatross on their neck, and really become part of their story, and whether it's hold them back or drag them down, things that are not positive for moving forward.
Absolutely. I definitely found that there was a time in my life, maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago or so, where I was just completely paralyzed by a roommate wanting me to get rid of some of my furniture. And I was just sobbing in my bathroom. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to, like, whatever this is, this trauma that I'm really holding on to of not being safe, not having a home, not having things of my own that I'm not willing to release. It can't control my life. I can't keep identifying myself like this. So, I had to do a lot of work to release it, but now it just feels like, okay, cool. That was a thing that happened. And now here we are.
Yeah, I mean, I think so often, and when I'm doing my life coaching, talk to people about their response to what happens. I mean, you can have some event happen, and it can be a short in duration, or it can be longer in duration. But how one responds to that really shapes the whole experience, both as it's happening and moving forward.
Mm, absolutely. It's such an important piece of our story and who we get to be in this life.
Yeah, I like, and I like the fact that you keep referring to it as a story, as someone's story. I mean, and look, this is called the Mystic Journey podcast, and I basically said, everybody's on a journey, but it's basically the same thing as you're saying, that everybody has their story, and the novel that they're in, and as I say that, it makes me think that the novel's never completed, right? At least as long as we're incarnated, it's not completed, and you can always change the story as it's going on, and certainly what the various ends of the various chapters.
Absolutely. And that's part of why I love this community and I love Mystic Journey and you guys. And it really is this like consistent unfolding of you and the you-ness of you. And even the rupture, even the grief, even the difficult stuff, it's all part of cracking open deeper to the experience of you. Like we don't experience the depth of pleasure without pain or the depth of joy without sadness, right? So it's all part of the divine purpose, I suppose.
And so let me ask with that, um, how would you define divine purpose, or do you think everyone has a divine purpose?
I think our divine purpose is to be extremely human in this life because that's what we're here to do. We're infinite on the other side, whatever that means, whatever that looks like. I don't know. No one really knows. But we're here with a body to experience humanness and living on earth in a human experience. So when we have sadness, I'm like, ooh, that's very human. Or when I have grief, oh, that's very human. When I have pain, oh, that's very human. I'm so grateful I get to experience this here because on the other side, it's not going to be there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I'll ask you in a minute what you mean by humanness, but I believe and counsel that we are here on the physical plane, where we're, what we're experiencing when we're interacting with other individuals and either ourselves. We're on the physical plane, and really this is where we're here to do the work, both on ourselves and with others, to make this physical plane a better place for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
So
what I mean by humanness is like it's exactly that. We're raising the consciousness consistently while still being in a three-dimensional filter. I know I've personally done the thing where I had the big spiritual awakening in like I think 2012, and then I did the whole thing where I was like in the third eye and in the crown chakra, and I was in the clouds and I was in the sky, and I was like, woohoo, I'm a goddess, and I did all that and all the crystals and all the things. And of course, we love all of that because it's a physical manifestation of consciousness and spirituality. But at the same time, I came back down and I went, oh, and now I'm really grateful to be human. I'm really grateful to be 3D. I'm really grateful to feel my body, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I am. I feel like we when we really turn our attention to that space, we can work wonders. And so with working wonders, let me ask you about your health encounter and your healing yourself from a disease that someone that was obviously not yourself said was not curable.
Yeah, I love that we were like, let's just go into all of the like esoteric talk real quick and then we'll come back. I got diagnosed with an incurable chronic pain disease called interstitial cystitis in my early 20s. And basically
That's a
what
big term. I can't even say it. What is it again?
interstitial cystitis.
What does that mean?
It means the interstitial lining of my bladder was essentially thinned and ulcered, so inflamed. It feels like a chronic UTI, but there's no bacteria to treat, so you just kind of have to live with it. And that often comes with a host of other problems in your reproductive areas and your sacred places. And all of the treatments for it were very invasive, lots of poking and prodding and very traumatic, catheters, and none of
Yeah.
it giving relief. And being in my early 20s, and they're telling me, well, there's no rhyme or reason why this happens. A lot of women have it. You just have to live with it. And it didn't sit right in my body. And it's definitely the reason I had a spiritual awakening, because I had, like I think when you come that when your body isn't working correctly, right? Like when something is wrong, you begin to look for God, you begin to look for divinity, you begin to look for something else outside of you to help. And I just cracked so deeply open. And I remember this time they told me, none of these treatments are working. We could put you on medication, but you might lose your hair and it might be difficult to walk. And there's no guarantee that it will work, but we can try it. And I just remember thinking, what that, I'm not an experiment. I'm a person, I'm a woman, and I have this complex body. And so I started doing all of this research about the holistic side of things. And I just really came to realize that the medical system still doesn't really know that much about the female body, because we have studied the male body for so long that we're treating women like they're men. But we have such a complex, different state of everything, which is beautiful. Like we are beautifully different. So I just went the holistic path, and I was documenting it on YouTube. I basically got on YouTube on my old HP computer. It was like YouTube was still relatively new and the videos super glitchy. And I'm like, I'm going to heal this or I'm going to die trying. And I just documented the journey. And within 90 days, I had a bunch of relief, and thousands of people had flocked to this YouTube channel watching it and asking for my help. So I just started helping people do what I was doing around the world, just for free, just to be helpful. And within a year, I was completely healed.
Wow. That's amazing. And wonderful. And I can fill in with a bunch of adjectives. I mean, when you say, the doctors or the medical world said, oh, well, we have no idea what caused this and we have no idea how to fix it. It just, it strikes me like a spear sort of right through me. Cause I had my cancer and when I didn't do the chemo route, I mean, I certainly got a lot of what are you doing? And look, my best friend's a doctor. He's an internist and very scientific. Um, but I feel like a lot of the medical world, just generally, I mean, this is probably way too broad of a statement, but a lot of it, they're just guessing, right? They really don't know, and they've not. Many of them have not opened themselves up to other approaches, and what you called holistic healing. And the fact that it sounds like you heard these words and tried for a while, and then finally, like, your body was telling you there is some answer, and you went for it.
Mhm. Yeah, I think about that a lot with you as well, going through cancer and everything. It's amazing to me that we still haven't come to, I think we are getting there now, but we still haven't fully come to this place of, well, what has happened to you? What trauma could be living in your body? Also the trauma in our lineage, right? Like all of these things impact the way our body is working. And yet we're just so unwilling to look at it, and we just want to shove medicine down our throat that may or may not help. It's not the solution.
No, it's not the solution, because it's just treating a symptom. I
Mhm.
mean, ultimately, and I don't know what the right word is. I was taught this by my teacher, one of my spiritual teachers, who was also one of my healers. That I mean, pretty much everything that's going on physically with an individual has some emotional root, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, in how did you go about really digging into the root cause of your illness? And did you do it alone, or did you have some healers or teachers working with you?
Yeah, so this is actually a really interesting topic, and I will give a slight trigger warning, just because I do want to be very honest about this. But there's some stuff here that could be triggering. I did it on my own, and so there were communities out there that the women were in so much pain that they started to post photos of me in like interstitial cystitis network group, saying this woman is dangerous. Do not listen to her advice. She's not a medical doctor. She'll harm you, essentially telling people to stay away from me. And I was eating raw vegan, which I'm no longer a raw vegan, but I felt that that was a really good reset for my body in those 90 days. And I was seeing spiritual healers, and I was doing a lot of feminine embodiment practices, reconnecting to my body, because women are not taught to actually know very much about our bodies, or to look at them, understand our hormone fluctuations, our cycles, understand our feminine lineage of women who were repressed in their sexuality, in their beauty, in their confidence, women being pitted against each other, which was happening to me while doing this work. And then I went and saw a healer in Venice who made me sign a contract that was a very weird contract and actually assaulted me. And in this process, I mean, I swear my mind just opened deeper. Like the trauma didn't sit in my body. I was like, this is so fascinating. And this is where I got curious about what's really happening with women in the spiritual community, also just in our bodies, in our lineage, in not knowing ourselves at all, and always looking the other direction. And how can we be really, truly, radically honest about our experience in this body?
Wow. um, I'm not, I can't even imagine. I can't imagine being involved with a healer who was whatever the opposite of healing was. I mean, abusive is certainly a word, but I mean, I can't even imagine what it would be like to have to confront that. Although, look, I mean, I do believe that you know the universe brings us things so that we're basically forced to look at them and use them for our growth.
Yeah, and I was in a place where I was starting to understand that sexual healing is a big piece of healing, especially when you have a disease or pain or condition in your womb space or your sacred spaces. I was willing to go there. So and not that I'm taking personal responsibility in any way that's not good or bad or whatever, but I was curious enough to go, how do I heal in this way? How do I go look for healing in this way? And sometimes you find things you don't want, and sometimes you do, and it's complicated, it's complex, none of this is simple, but the point is we got results.
Well,
So
right, right. And so earlier, you had used the phrase a spiritual awakening, that you had a spiritual awakening, and I think you said it was during this process.
absolutely. So I was still going through treatments for this condition. And I remember I had a friend come in from Palm Springs because I had moved out to LA from that area. And we went out with my roommates. We were all 21. Like it was just so fun and great. We were in Santa Monica. We were new to LA. And I was with a bunch of guys, and they started to like fight with some strangers in the street. And just like street violence broke out right in front of me while I was going through this process. And I remember, I don't know what happened, but my whole body got super hot, and I just started to like channel. And it wasn't the first time in my life I had channeled. The first time in my life I had channeled was actually at my father's funeral. But this
What do
was
you
this
mean by channeling?
just words coming through me that were not mine, not even my
Mhm.
voice. And I just started to like go off on kind of a similar tangent as whatever was coming out of me at my dad's funeral, which is like, mere mortals are selfish, we have this experience, blah blah blah, like we believe in this and we're actually energy and it's light and this, and I had no idea what any of this was at the time. I was still like a McDonald's Taco Bell girl, you know.
Yeah.
And it just, after that experience, I remember that friend no longer spoke to me anymore because he was like, what the heck is she talking about?
Were you
um,
actually verbal, orating this,
yes.
verbalizing it?
Yes, it was coming out of my mouth. I was in the car and then all
Wow.
the way back to my apartment and then in my bedroom that night. We were all just sitting there and I was just like, blah, 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 blah. So, anyways, that friend never spoke to me again. But I ended up for months just being exhausted, tired, having lucid dreams, not feeling well, overheating. I was sick constantly. Just the craziest dreams of being in other dimensions, and like beings standing around me while I was sleeping, but I could watch myself sleeping, and getting all these downloads that I needed to go natural. I needed to go raw. Like I was just listening to whatever they were telling me to do. So when you asked earlier, did I have guidance? That was the guidance.
Well, I'm not sure there could have been better guidance if you were being guided by guides from another plane.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely feel like that was it. Like I just kind of listened. Or even in my feminine embodiment practices, I listened, like, where do you want me to send my body? And they would just show me.
Yeah, in doing these podcasts, I mean, the one theme that continually comes up is listening.
Yeah.
And it's so important to do. And I actually think that, for a lot of people, it actually takes some, some training and some release and some openness to be able to really, when these things come in, whether they're actually, you know, something you hear audially or it's a feeling or whatever, to be open to let that in and to listen to it and follow it is so important.
So important. Surrender and listening and also beingness. And this is something that I really wanted to bring to this podcast as well, because you and I play in the manifestation world pretty heavily, and we play in it together and we play in it in the world. And my way of manifesting is very feminine. It's less of a process and more of, who am I being in each and every moment, and how do I continue to be this woman? And the results from that in itself, I don't write down, I want this goal or that goal. I just become the woman who is healed. I become the woman who has the love. I become the woman who has the success in her career, has the beautiful home, whatever it is. And then it just comes to me. And there's no question in my mind. There's no doubt. It just is, because it's who I'm being.
I'm just sort of letting that sink in. Right. I think a lot of people are striving to create something new in their life. I think a lot of people are searching, and one thing that I believe, there's no one way of doing things. There's no right answer, and I think it's good that people hear. I certainly have I have the blessing of the teachings I've been given that have helped me create what I've wanted in my life. Um, and and but that's not the only way, and it may not work for everybody, and I say that even though I coach. But people, it's like religion to me, or everybody can follow their own path, and just, if it makes somebody a better person, or if it works for them and how they manifest, I think that's great. And who am I to judge whether they use my method or your method?
think it's all right, right? Like it's
Yeah.
all exactly correct, and you get to play in the results of it all. And I think this is my own lingo talking, but if you're a more masculine identifying person, doing an action is how you're going to get results. And we live in a patriarchal world where we're all taught to do doing and action, and it is valuable. But I also want to bring value to the beingness and the lean back and the allowing and the inspirational steps that we get to take that come from listening.
How would you, I don't know, define or describe or differentiate between the masculine and feminine energies?
Absolutely. So, masculine is the yang energy. It's the energy of doing, penetration, goals, goal oriented, moving towards a goal, really working and earning what it is that is treasured. And we all have that inside of us, the same way that we all have yin inside of us, which is the feminine energy, which is creation at its core. It's chaos, it's softness, it's beauty, it's romance, it's like the wind, right? It's very unpredictable, whereas the masculine is sturdy and predictable. And we all have yin and yang inside of us, and we have yin and yang in everything. We have the sun and the moon, we have the ocean and the sand. It is just the polarity of the planet. So when we understand our own inner balance for masculine and feminine energy, and for everyone it's going to be different, but we really can understand ourselves and how we get to create things on this planet. How much feminine do I need to create, and how much masculine do I need to do that creates the perfect formula for me?
Well, I like that. That creates the perfect formula for me because I was going to ask. I mean, do you feel it's important that everybody's balanced in their masculine and feminine energies, or is it all dependent on the individual?
It's the individual, but one thing that I will say is that I've noticed, because of being in a more patriarchal society where we've learned that we're only successful if we do things like men, because men were paving the way for what success looked like when women couldn't be part of that discussion. I see that women are leaning more into a masculine energy when it's not actually what's natural for them. If it is what's natural, that's gorgeous. But if it's what we're doing to force success into our lives and we're burning ourselves out, it may not be what's actually natural for us. And it's time to start playing in something different. So, again, it's each individual, but we also have to check in with ourselves and ask, is this really me, or is this what I've been conditioned to do? And is there another way that is really for me?
Yeah, there's so many things running through my mind. I mean, so I'll that brings up the concept of women in the workforce and women in the glass ceiling and women. I mean, I'm a little bit older, and so sort of grew up during what I would call the original I don't know. Let's take the word original out. One of the strong feminist movements, during the 60s and 70s, and I it makes me think that now there may be sort of a bit of a rebalancing going on where women are career oriented, but not at the expense of the feminine aspects of living.
Yes, it's exactly that. I have this great example from one of my clients the other day. She works in construction. Most of my clients are, hyper masculine women who they have hyper masculine careers, but they want to learn how to be more feminine and soft in their love lives. And it always leaks over into their careers. But she was telling me that she had a very difficult meeting, and she went in with red lipstick on and a beautiful like outfit that made her feel very feminine and soft, and she was leaned back through the whole conversation. And she said the conversation went so well. It was one of the best meetings she's ever had. And I love this example so much because I don't have to walk into a meeting in my corporate job, which I do have a corporate job as well as my coaching career. And I'm a busy lady. I have to have a balance in my masculine energy, but I don't have to approach everything in this penetrative,
Yeah.
this is me trying to show the boys that I can hang with them. I'd rather
Yeah.
create success like a woman and let it flow to me in that way.
Why do you think it is? So I tend to have I can call myself in some aspects a political junkie. I like I like politics. I worked in Congress. I think if I hadn't, become a lawyer early on, I would have ended up not as being a candidate, but sort of a behind the scenes kind of guy. I actually ran a congressional campaign many years ago. But as you're talking, I in watching world politics, I've realized, well, not realized, but I've seen that there are now women leaders all over the world, even in some of the countries that I would think are least likely to have it. Some South American countries where you would think it was extremely, if not misogynistic, at least patriarchal is the word you use. But in America, in the United States, we can't seem to get to that point. Any opinion why?
Oh, Jeff, you want to bring out the controversial topics. I love it. Yeah, I think that we're also busy fighting with each other on what we think is right and wrong. Like, if you look at our algorithms on the internet, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook, we're only being fed algorithms that the computers, the AIs, think that we want to see. And anything that's different, we're literally being programmed to like yell and fight and scream at each other. So there's no way that we can come together in this like beautiful balancing of understanding that the feminine is a fantastic leader and the masculine is a fantastic protector and provider, and that can work really well when we lead countries. But we're also busy thinking that we're right and being righteous, that we're not listening.
Hmm. What well, what is your suggested approach to correcting this so that we get, a bit more balance and a bit more goddess energy, really leading our country. I mean, I think that's what we need. I mean, we need some nurturing aspects. This is not going to, on this podcast it may be I don't know if I'd say a popular opinion or in the majority, but in America it wouldn't be. And I feel so strongly that we exalt our military, right? I mean, whether it's in sporting events or parades or whatever, it's a lot of military. When in fact, what we really should be exalting are our teachers, right?
Mm.
Who are nurturing our children, and I just I really feel like the goddess energy is something we need to bring to a place of leadership for us. So how do you what is your thought on combating or overcoming these um, combative algorithms?
It's a really good question. I think there's so many moving pieces here. Like you said, taking care of our teachers, less about military, more teachers would be fantastic. We definitely need to be taking better care of the women when it comes to childcare, because the way that childcare is handled in this country is absolutely appalling, and it makes a woman's journey very, very, very difficult, far more difficult than most people realize. And on top of that, community. So there's this wonderful teacher. His name is Professor Scott Galloway. If anyone looks him up, he's got a wonderful podcast and wonderful books. But he talks about how the most dangerous person that a community or a country or a people can have is the lonely, broke male. And what we're seeing in the United States specifically is as women rise into power and they're doing it all, the men are kind of falling behind and not really sure where their role is supposed to be. And because of the pandemic, we have a lack of community, whether that's sports or church or some sort of coming together where we can expand as a community. We're way more isolated than we've ever been. I think there's a statistic that says, like 1 in 3 men under the age of 30 haven't had sex in the last year, which is a fundamental part of connection and growth. So, really, community and coming back together and not yelling at each other, but really developing the type of emotional intelligence where we listen. We don't need to be right. We're open to other possibilities and ideas, and we take better care of community than the self. I think that's going to be a really great way to start.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I know from having Mystic Journey and going through COVID, and what I saw is just a complete severing of community, that and really community that was so strong and vibrant and growing in the, in the West Los Angeles or overall Southern California area. It's starting. I mean, people are craving for it to come back, and it is starting to come back. And I think it's so important that, the personal, face to face, human touch interaction is so critical, and has been so um, almost cast aside, even without COVID.
Absolutely. And then COVID just sort of exacerbated it
Exacerbated.
because there
Yeah.
were people who had different thoughts and feelings about a lot of very political topics. And we weren't just pitted against each other, but we were violently pitted against each other, to where I see people telling each other on the internet that they should die for having a different opinion. And I just think that's absolutely mind blowing that there are a lot of people who take more time out of their day to tear people down in the algorithm than listen, connect, get curious, and expand their own capacity to have and hold more love in this life.
For sure. I just, that's what we need, is more love and more tolerance. So let me ask, I mean, so you went through this healing in your early 20s, and somehow I don't think you're 25 right now. But I'm not going to ask your age, but where did life take you after you healed yourself?
Oh my goodness. So, I started to do a couple different certification programs. I did the Women's Healing Arts teacher training, and then began working with you in Mystic Journey right after I finished that program. And I was holding women's circles and ecstatic dance, but I didn't really believe in myself as far as being a business owner or being able to hold that. I was still in my mid 20s, and it wasn't quite there for me yet. So I was still acting. I was acting, pretty consistently in Hollywood, and I started to see my my romantic relationships, were what was still really struggling from this apparent trauma that I had been through in my childhood. I was consistently attracting my father, different types of addicts and different types of abusers, even though maybe not physical, emotional, absolutely. And I was looking for my worth in a lot of those places. So I had a couple of magical journeys. I got certified in clinical hypnotherapy, attracted a really incredible partnership that was just absolutely like nothing I had ever had. And I felt like, wow, I really did it. I really got here. And a couple years into that relationship, 3 years, that ended too. And I think that was in early 2022, and that was the moment for me where I was like, okay, I've done the thing. I've been the spiritual woman. I've been the smart woman. I've been the educated woman. I've been the pretty woman. I've been all of these women. I've been the perfect girlfriend. I have helped people. I run a business, and I'm still here feeling cracked open and ruptured and like not good enough and all of these things. And that was my first experience with what I call, or what we call in this community, the dark feminine. I felt like I absolutely died and had to be reborn. And now the way that I move about the planet is just very, very different. And the way that I help my clients is very different than before. I have so much faith in the universe unfolding and giving you exactly what you need at each moment to continue to rise and be the person that you want to be, that you've been calling in. There's never a doubt in my mind that the universe is like, oh, well, you asked for this. Sometimes manifestation looks like loss too. And so I feel like I died and I was reborn with this like golden armor where it's just like unmesswithable. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
that's a little bit of what happened after the illness.
Mm. So maybe we could delve in a little more to your term of dark feminine, because when I hear the word dark, I mean it doesn't bring up positive connotations. So what is the dark feminine to you?
Really, really good question, because I was always kind of like, oh, stay away from that energy as well. But I realize now, I have a deep understanding now that we are not just light beings, we are balanced beings. Again, we are yin and yang in all things. So if I am repressing what is natural and innate darkness inside of myself, as we all have, if I'm keeping my inner B word, I don't know if I can cuss. Can I cuss on this podcast?
No,
Okay,
it's fine.
inner B word. That's perfect. Inner B word in the closet. and not letting her be expressed in herself, then I'm repressing a part of myself. So I can't possibly be whole and full. And I think a lot of the times when we think about feminine energy, we think about the light aspects, the nurturing, the love, the softness. But the feminine is also chaos embodied. It's, we think about the goddess Kali. She is destruction. And through destruction comes creation. And so I felt this darkness, almost like not just me, but landing on the planet in spring of 2022. And I remember like sobbing on the floor. I was like, oh my God, she's here and she's going to eat me whole. And I was just in this willingness to be the villain, willingness to be the bad girl, willingness to let go of this need to be perfect and light and right and all of these things all the time, and be whole and integrated and healthy in my darkness and my lightness. And it's so much more of a full experience, because I think when we repress what's natural darkness to us, this is where we start to see, killers and people doing really bad things in the world because they're not integrated in their wholeness.
Well, that leads me to ask. I mean, so but this darkness does not include, either physical or mental harm to others, right?
Never, 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 never. It's the healthy darkness inside of you, right? Like, I don't need to be the perfect good girl anymore. I'm willing to be the villain if I need to be, because sometimes people will make you the villain in their story because they need to be the victim. And when I was in my lightness and I wanted to be the perfect girl all the time, I couldn't take that. I couldn't take it. I felt like I was on the defense all the time. And at some point, I'm willing to strap my leather boots on and say, okay, if that's who I need to be, then that's who I'll be, and I'm just going to keep being myself. And I'm not apologetic about it, because I'm not harming people. I'm a good person. I do good things in the world, and I can't control what other people think or speak or however it is. So I'm just going to be all of me from here on out. And I think women will really relate to this, because the need to be the good girl all the time is so deeply programmed in us that it's isolating and it's paralyzing. And this is a form of freedom where I get to be all of it.
Yeah, it crosses my mind. To be honest, I mean, I can't. What's the word? I can't empathize with that because I'm not a woman, right?
Mhm.
So it's really, it's interesting because totally hear what you're saying and get it, but it's interesting that, I can't really understand. I mean, maybe it also can, um, the same kind of not being able to be in your shoes. It works to race too. I'm not, I'm a white guy, so I can't really be in the shoes of somebody who's non-white. And I mean, I think it's really good. It's really good for me as a man to hear these things, because we don't hear them a lot.
Yeah, and also being the type of man who can receive it. And, like, I'm grateful that you are that type of person, because I know for a lot of men that I speak to, and I do have male clients, and I do understand men very well, and love men, absolutely. And I don't see that men ever have a problem saying, no, that doesn't work for me. But for women, we really struggle with that. We want to be agreeable, we want to be nice, we want to be likable. It's just this deep program that sometimes we have to access a little bit of our darkness to say, no, that actually doesn't work for me. Thank you. And it takes a lot of strength.
Yeah, well, in strength, inner strength. I mean, when you talked about strapping your boots on, the word that came to me is judgment and self judgment. For people to be able to go out and express themselves and not judge themselves based upon what was, is you term you've used, programmed them in the past, or to allow others to judge them in a way that it then either takes the joy out of what they're doing or causes them to do something different.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's so paralyzing to like go to a dinner party with a bunch of new people you don't know, and then you try to conform to fit in with whatever they're saying, even though you don't agree, or it's this or it's that. But to just stand in you and be confident in who you are and still be loving through the whole process. Like, no, I actually don't agree. Cool. No one has to be wrong here, and I still get to be myself.
Yeah, no one has to be wrong. That's such an I think that's such an important line in this world today. No one
Yeah.
has to be wrong.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back for a second, just because it went through my mind about your healing. Um, how how did you experience these the symptoms, the physical symptoms, beginning to alleviate, beginning to go away, and the building of your confidence that whatever you were doing was working?
Ooh, really good question. I suppose on a physical level, um, when I would go to the bathroom, it was not as painful anymore. There was like a coolness, a relief to it. But I guess on an energetic or emotional level, I remember one time I was at my job and I was talking about what I was going through. And this man said to me, "You know, you should really stop talking about your illness because nobody wants to date or love a sick girl." And I remember
Wow.
how deeply that impacted me, and it stays with me to this day. But it was like things like that just were not impacting me anymore because I was not identifying as a sick girl. I was beginning to identify as a woman who was healing. And that felt empowering versus I didn't feel small. I didn't feel broken. If I was doing feminine embodiment practices with myself and my body in the mirror, I didn't feel scared or worried anymore. I felt empowered. So even in the moments where I wasn't healed yet, I was just so sure it was happening. It was that surety of, oh, I know myself better than ever now, and nothing's going to stop me.
Yeah, it makes me think, as I was well, as I was going through my cancer, and really as I've gotten older and gone through the years, I've come to realize that so much of us who work in the, let's just say, in the manifestation arena and are working with others to help them create what they want in their lives. One of the things that at least began with my healing from cancer was that the practices, the manifestation practices that work in the external world can
Mm,
also work and do also work on the internal world, on our own. One can apply them to their own bodies. And and, and I found, and that's what I was going to say, as I get older. I mean, look, the fact is that at least my experience is, as I get older, there are definitely more aches and pains, little things, nothing major, but just little things. But I've come to realize that I can basically work with and talk to my body, and and be patient with my body, and it actually can and will heal itself.
absolutely. It can and it will and it wants to. It desires to. Your body is
That's good.
literally created to protect and heal itself so that it can survive, just like anything on this planet. So it's just really a beautiful and important conversation because also, like, I deeply believe in the power of collective agreement. So I remember telling my girlfriends, like, can we not talk about this anymore? Let's start talking about me like I'm healed because I wanted everyone around me to be in that frequency too.
That's interesting. So maybe you could talk a little bit. I've never heard that term, collective agreement. What does that mean to you?
So I believe that we live in a collectively agreed upon reality, right? Like we agree that the sky is blue and the grass is green and a stop sign means stop and a yellow light means slow down, and these are laws that we've put in place, but they're not universal laws. They're collectively agreed upon by humans who are creating a way to have society. And I see that working in the manifestation world too, where if we collectively agree that a certain political figure is really, really bad, we might start to see more bad behavior from them. Or if we collectively agree that, let's just say, women are weak from a different time period, women are weak. We're going to start seeing more weak behavior in the women. So if we begin to collectively agree that so and so is healed, if we begin to collectively agree that so and so is a good person, and that's the frequency that we're vibrating in as a larger collective, we'll start to see the results of that in that person, whether they know it or not. Another good example is, let's say, a group of friends and they're all starting to gang up on Sally, and they're all like, well, Sally is a bad person. Sally might start be exhibiting behaviors of being a bad person that are not like her natural state because of the frequency that she's surrounded herself with.
Interesting. It's an interesting concept. I like it.
Yeah, it's a fun one. That's
Yeah, no,
the thing.
I think
All the manifestation stuff, like, yes, we're this is like religion for people like us. This is our God in so many ways. And it gets to be playful and fun.
Well, playful and fun, that's good, right? I mean, I think that particularly over the last number of years, the sense of playfulness and fun has, let's just say, it's dissipated a bit. Have you found that?
Totally. Everything feels so heavy and so serious. And I actually had this experience back in August with a dear friend of ours who works for you at the store. Where I just remember I like sat up and I was like, I think I'm done with heavy. I think I've lived enough heavy for this lifetime. I think I'm just going to choose lightness from now on and choose fullness. And I think my life gets to be good. And I like right when I said it, I swear the entire universe shifted around me.
Yeah. Well, things can change in an instant. I mean, that's sort of written in a ton of books, and it really is true.
It's written in your book.
Thank you. Um, but it's interesting because I noticed during the holiday season this year that there was, I like your term, heaviness. There was just something a little heavy about the holidays this year that has not really been there. And I think that again, it's about bringing community back, whether it's events at our bookstore, or group sessions that you may have, or sound baths that other people may have that bring people together. People, there's beginning to be drumming circles on the beach again, or yoga classes are happening again. I think bringing people back together can begin to dissipate this heaviness, can work sort of like as a solvent, and start to crack this heaviness that's sort of hung over us for the last period of time.
I so agree. Like we're humans need each other. We want each other. We want connection with each other, ourselves, with God, with universe, with all of it. It's just such a beautiful piece of existing.
Yeah, I learned from my senior partner at the law firm where I was at for 25 years. I mean, the thing that he, I mean, literally preached, which I've certainly taken to heart, is that in business and really in everything, it's all about personal relationships.
Hmm.
And getting back to that, to really having personal relationships where it's not like you're sitting behind your phone sending some text, and it's about as impersonal as you can get. To get back to those personal relationships with friends, with business people, with lovers, it's just so important.
And it's, you know what? It changes everybody's perspective of the day, right? Like going down to your coffee shop and not just like, hey, how are you? I'll have a latte. Thanks. Here's the transaction. Goodbye. But like, how are you? Like genuinely asking, haven't seen you in a while. How's your lady? How's your wife? Whatever. This is the way that I talk to people in my corporate job. They'll call me and be like, Taylor, this needs to get done. I'm like, hi, how are
Yeah.
you? What's going on? And I find that I'm treated so well by these people because I genuinely care about them, and I may not know them very well. I don't have to know them very well, but if I'm going to be this spiritual woman who deeply believes in these principles and concepts, I am you. You are me. We are from the same. Why would I just put my head down in my phone and ignore myself? It's terrible. I would rather create this like beautiful experience all around me every single day.
Yeah, I found I don't know, I don't even remember how long ago. Let's say within the last 6 months, for the first time, although I'm almost a little embarrassed to say it, but I've started working. I've started working at the gallery. I've actually started working at my stores, and the experience has been just absolutely wonderful for me. And what's interesting is people come into the gallery, and I talk to them about our crystals and stones, and show them the pictures and from my travels, and going to the mines, and explain the process of how these beautiful works of art are brought out so that we can all experience them. And so many times people are like, wow, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this and explain this. And it just says to me that, wow, so much of our interaction now with people on so many levels is so circumscribed, so short, and without that sense of feeling and caring.
Yeah, we got to care more. We got to care more, whether or not they're paying you or putting food on your table or keeping the roof over your head. Like, that's not what makes a person special. Like, what makes a person special is when you get to know them and you feel them, and it might only be a moment in a day, and it can make all the difference.
For sure. So as we get towards the end of our hour, I wanted to talk a little bit about your current, I don't know what label to put on it, coaching work, advisory work, counseling work. Can you tell the people a little bit, our wonderful audience, a little bit more about what you do and your desires and goals for it?
Absolutely. So, as of January, I guess we're in January as we record this, I have released my most favorite offer that I've ever created, which is called the Muse Mastermind. And this really is for the woman who is high powered, high achieving, working her bum off to create a beautiful life for herself. And she's killing it, but really struggling with relationships and love and dating and feeling like there's just no more good men out there, because that's not true. There are so many wonderful men out there. And so I'm helping these women really drop into their feminine energy and get really strategic about how to call in the type of man who is going to honor them and devote to them and cherish them and have a really beautiful relationship while loving and honoring and cherishing themselves in the process. And we've started this mastermind. It's still open, but the women in the first week were already getting amazing results, such as walking down the street and people just approaching them like, "You have such a beautiful smile, and I just wanted you to know, thank you so much for walking by me." And they feel safer. They're getting results in their work with their colleagues, specifically their male colleagues, and just having incredible experiences with men that they didn't think were even possible anymore. Because when we're in our hyper masculine energy to create these beautiful things in the world, it can be really hard to switch back into our softness and our allowing and our receiving and our fullness. And there's just something so beautiful about those dynamics specifically in dating and partnership, that I'm so grateful to be bringing back to this planet.
And so, do you do in-person sessions either for one-on-one or in groups?
I have group online because a lot of my clients are either on the East Coast or out of the country.
Hmm.
I have private one to ones that I do online. And then I do VIP days with clients as well, where we just have a full day together. We do deep dive training, we get dinner, we have lots of fun, and just learn a whole new way of being out in the world.
And and then do you have other programs? I don't know what quite the right word is, but other programs that are like available. Because I will ask you in a minute, about how people can reach out to contact you. But do you have like other programs that you've done in the past that are available online?
As of now, no, I do not. Besides, I do 90-minute sessions from time to time for those who
Oh
just want
wow.
like an intensive, quick session. But in the past, I've launched my Manifest Like a Woman Academy. This is no longer open. I've launched Ignite, which is my like introductory to relationships program. This is not available at this time because everything that I'm doing, I want it to be very hands on and very community oriented.
Oh, interesting. I mean, it all sounds like wow. Well, I'm not a woman, but I mean, wow. I wish I was there. Will you be like re-offering any of these older courses, or are you just evolving as it comes?
I'm evolving as it comes. I believe that the Muse Mastermind will go bigger in the middle of this year, and it will become my signature offer. However, with that said, I've had a few men reach out to me about a men's program as well. I've been
Great.
taking private one-off male clients, and it has been absolutely amazing. I love working with men. Like, you guys just take action so quickly. It's awesome. But yes, so that is coming, and then I'm also working on my book, which you and I will be talking about very soon.
I can't wait. So let me ask, how can people reach out to you both? Email, social media, any snail mail.
Snail mail, please. Yes, my website is upgradewithtaylor.com, or you can reach out at taylor@upgradewithtaylor.com. And on Instagram, that's where I hang out the most. My Instagram handle is tayfemme, TAYFEMME. And I also have a private Facebook group where all the good, juicy stuff goes down when it comes to relationships and masculine, feminine dynamics. But feel free to DM me and email me, and I can send you that link if you'd like it.
Well, that sounds great. Well, Taylor, it's been a fast, wonderful hour. And again, I so appreciate you taking the time to do this and sharing your thoughts and your wisdom and your healing experience with our audience.
Jeff, thank you so much for having me. I couldn't be more grateful to be here, and I cannot wait to see how this podcast takes off for you.
Well, thanks so much. And I'll look forward to seeing you again soon. And for everyone who's joined us, I just want to say thank you to you as well. I so appreciate you and our audience and the time that we spend together and what I get to share with you and with you and our guest. And as always, if you have any questions, about what you heard today, you can reach me at Jeff@Mystic Journey LA. And until next time, stay positive, see the beauty in all things, and keep your mind focused on creating exactly what you want in your life. Bye-bye for now. Thank you for joining us today on the Mystic Journey podcast. We hope you enjoyed it and look forward to having you back again for our next podcast. If you have any questions about what you heard on the podcast today, or would like to share your thoughts on the podcast in general, please feel free to email me at jeff@mysticjourneyla.com. Until next time, stay positive, see the beauty in all things, and keep your mind focused on creating exactly what you want in your life.